Back, Grief Nation listeners. Welcome to the show today. I have a very special guest. He is a master teacher, and you're going to learn all about them, the things that he's mastering. It's such an amazing opportunity to have master teacher Leon R. Walker Jr. here with us. How are you, Leon?
I'm good. How you doing, Miami? Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. So we're going to just jump right in. So tell my listeners, how would you describe becoming Leon?
Becoming Leon, it took a lot. Go back to my childhood, being a very dysfunctional, abused, and neglected little kid. It wasn't anything against my parents. My parents were great people, lovely people, very strong. But based on my childhood, my past, I wasn't given many options or choices. My life was taken from me at an early age. I was derailed, like a lot of young men and women in this world today. And so I had a low self-esteem. I had a lack of confidence. I was dealing with my parents' divorce. I was dealing with suicide ideations and many other things. And so I became a lost child. I became very disarray, unhappy, uncomfortable. And so I got tired of living that way, and I had to make some decisions. And so both my parents dropped out in the 8th grade. So college wasn't spoken about in my family, but the military was. And so I decided to join the military to look for structure, to look for discipline. Even though my dad gave me that, when my parents got divorced, the structure and discipline was gone. And so I had to start over. I was a little kid on my own, just like a lot of kids out here today are on their own. So I had to find a way in life. I had to find a way through life. And I did that by persevering. I did that by studying myself. I did that by wanting more out of life. I did that by becoming stronger physically first and then mentally. And so the military gave me what I was looking for. And through the military, I learned a lot. I lost a lot. I became even more addicted to things that I shouldn't have been addicted to. I became a leader. I became a follower. I became many things. And so here you are now. You have this man that's been through a lot, made some tough decisions, made some good decisions, bad decisions. And so I found myself in the military, and that's what helped me grow into Leon. And this is who you all are speaking to today.
Wow, that was a lot to unpack. Um, you are a respected naval veteran for over 32 years of service. How did the military play such a huge role in your mental health journey?
So the military played a huge role in my mental health journey because I myself have severe PTSD by way of an event, a tragic event that I was a part of in 1987. When you get a chance, and to your listeners, look up the USS Stark. When it happened in 87, they got hit by 2 missiles, May 17th of 1987. My team was selected to go on their ship and help fight the fires and recover bodies. Essentially, everyone in the Navy becomes a firefighter at one time, from boot camp on. And so you learn how to fight fires, and you learn how to classify fires, and you learn how to rescue people, and you learn CPR. And so I never thought that I would have to use that in that manner in which I did in May of 1987. And so I was experiencing tragic events. I was experiencing death, a ship that was sinking, a ship that was bombed by an Iraqi jet fighter. And so I had to push through. I was afraid. I was very fearful because I'm from the inner city. We're normally not on ships, but in the military, you really have no choice if you choose a Navy. And so I learned 28 years after that event that I had severe PTSD and didn't even know it. So for 28 years, I was going through life suppressing things. I was going through life with nightmares, cold sweats, fear, and I was fighting through it. But it made me stronger, but it caused me to ruin relationships, friendships, my marriage. I became very abusive. I became mentally abusive, verbally abusive, and I became like stuck on myself. I became very independent. I became a recluse at times. And so my mental health awareness started when I saw my first psychiatrist in 1987. But after that point, most Black men, the men that I've experienced, we're taught that, you don't cry, you suck it up, you keep things to yourself, you man up, you move on. And so that's what I did. But I had PTSD, but didn't even know it. But I was acting it out in my job, in my relationships, and in my marriage. So it caused me to learn more about PTSD. It caused me to learn about my mind and how the mind works. It caused me to study my own personality and my parents' personality and other people that I would come in contact with. So it's a lot to it, but that's where it started.
Wow. Now, just learning about all that you had experienced and what you've gone through, how can we best help service men and women during deployment? I wanted to ask that because I too have a child that's in the Navy. And so I remember them actually being stuck out there when COVID initially happened. So what are some ways or best ways that you can share with them while they're, what are some, I guess maybe self-care tips or some things to, for them during deployment?
So what happens is we deployed. When I was deployed back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have email until probably 1995, 96, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. So we had to wait and rely on letters. Nowadays, it's still good to send a letter, but people they don't even write anymore because everything is email, text message. And we also had telegrams. So we would get messages through Telegram, we would get messages through Red Cross, but it was always bad news. And so one way to help us out when we're out there is to constantly email, text when we get in port. We're able to let you all know when we're in port. We can text. We have cell phones. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. We had to rely on the cell phones that the port that we were visiting. They would bring cell phones to the ship. So it would be 280 people on one ship, but we're waiting to use 6 phones. Yeah. Or we would go to local USO or go onto the pier and try to use a phone where it was very, very expensive. The USO gave us phone cards. So another way to help out is to send care packages as often as you can. Most deployments are a minimum of 6 months. Some go to 8 or 9 months. So if you know your son's in the Navy, you know what your son likes to eat, send it to him, whether it's licorice, candy bars, pictures. We need pictures of families. Some people send us Bibles. Some people buy books and send them to us, but constant communication. And I would tell this to not just women, but men too. If your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, if you had an argument before you left, or you're not on good terms when a person left, don't cut the relationship out or don't file for divorce while this person's on deployment, because that's going to make them lose their mind. Just imagine if we're in the Persian Gulf, it's 120 degrees, we're far from home, thousands of miles away from home, communication is down, but you find a way to email your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, and say, hey, you know what, I've been thinking about this, and since you're gone, I had a lot of time to think, and I just don't want to do this anymore. That's what caused people to think about suicide. That's what caused people to actually commit suicide. And that could be the onset of PTSD and also the onset of anger issues. So we're already detached from our family. We're already gone. We're already around 300 to probably 5,000 unfamiliar people. We're already around people we don't trust. Don't make it worse by giving us bad news. Sometimes you can't help, like somebody dies or somebody has a baby. You want to deliver that, type of news. You have to. So just try to keep the bad news that you can control to a minimum and wait till we come back and try to, say, hey, this is what happened, but we fixed it, but there's a way to communicate with us while we're out there. But just, care packages, emails, text messages, pictures and things like that will really help out.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what are some best practices regarding mental wellness for the service men and women as they prepare for military discharge?
As they prepare for military discharge, some of the best practices are to start 1 year out. If you know you're going to separate from the military, start building your network up about a year out. Start working on your disabilities, because we're supposed to have a full body physical as we prepare to separate, like 6 months out. A lot of people do it too late, but the military has to pay us for the injuries that we incurred while we're in the military. But start 1 year out with your networking. Get your resume together. You can do it many ways. Indeed, USA Jobs, complete your college degree, take more college courses, work on another trade. Make sure your finances are in order. If you're paying child support, make sure you actually continue your child support. Don't drop it and stop it because you're getting out the military, because you still are required to pay that. Make sure your will is up to date, in the military, out the military, and continuous. But the networking and working on a job career is very important, because once we get out in the military, now we're getting 2 checks every month, guaranteed. Your first month out, you don't get a check if you retire. Your first month out, if you get out without retirement, you don't get any more checks, so you have to look for a job. But make good friendships, networking with the companies that you may or may want to work with. Start talking to them, start visiting them. Make sure your resume is extremely solid. Make sure you have all the course that you've attended in the military in your record. Make sure you show the people that you want to work for these things, these extra skill sets that you have. So networking, your resume, job hunting, and finding a location that you want to live in. Most of us get out after 4 years. We don't want to go back to our place of residence where we grew up at or where we joined the military at. So you may want to start looking at another state to live in, things like that. It's very important.
Yeah. Now, is there any mental health support that is given to servicemen and women at that time of, leaving service that they're in?
So not just when you're about to transition out, but while we're in, you have places like the VA hospital. They have places like Fleet Family Support Center. They have places that will sign you up if you have anger issues. You can go to school for that, or take courses for that. There's a lot of places. People, your senior leaders that you work for may have some connections with other psychiatrists or psychotherapists. Don't be afraid to get your help while you're in. And don't be afraid to tell people, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's wrong with me. I don't know if I'm ready to get out. And if you're afraid to get out, let somebody know. That's why the senior leaders are in place for that. That's why the VA hospital is in place for that. That's why Fleet and Family Support Center is in place for that. That's why places like the USO. USO is for, if you stop at the airport, you want to get some rest, get some food, but they also have people in place that you can talk to. They have brochures about PTSD, have brochures about mental health. They have brochures about being physically fit. All that stuff. We have a continuous information that's given to us day in and day out in the military, and how they have a transition class that you go to. It's called Transition GPS, Goals, Plans, and Separation. Make sure you attend that course twice before you get out. It's a week long. And so they talk about mental health, they talk about PTSD, they talk about suicide prevention, they talk about sexual assault, they talk about child abuse, they show you how to get your resume done. All those things are in place. We're very well taken care of in the military. And even when you're out, like myself, I've been out for 7 years, retired, I'm still being taken care of by the military.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because a lot of times, I'm sure they attend these courses, classes, they know what's available to them, but they just don't. I feel that some ex-military members that I know from in my family, maybe they just don't utilize the resources, because you're saying that there are resources available. You just have to be available to accept those resources and use them, I'm sure, right?
There are tons of resources. Okay. Even, like I said, I've been retired for 7 years. I just went to a meeting that they had for veterans that have gotten out, that need help with their repairs around the house. They may not have applied for their disability. They don't know what to do. They may need a hearing aid. They may need a prosthetic. They may need dental work. So there are people out here that are still saying, hey, we're having a meeting this Friday at 12 o'clock. We're going to serve you lunch, and we're going to go over everything that you didn't get in the military. A lot of young men just get out and go, I'm tired of the military. I'm tired of Navy. And then they don't realize the benefits that they have. You have benefits where you can have, if you have a handicap, you can get a reduced fee when you renew your license. You can possibly get a handicap parking spot. Okay, you can get, if you have 70% or more in Illinois, you can your property taxes go to zero. So states vary. I would highly suggest that if you buy a house and your disability is 70% or more in that state, look up to see how much the property taxes are. And in most cases, property taxes are more than your mortgage. In an area up here in Illinois, in Grace Lake, people pay $8,000 a year for property tax. But if you're a disabled veteran, 70% or more, you don't pay any property tax. I think it's 70% or more. You don't pay any property taxes. So that shaves off maybe $600, $700, $800 off your mortgage. So if your mortgage is $1,600 and you're a disabled veteran with 70% or more, now your mortgage is probably $800, and you can still pay it off in 15 to 20 years.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for serving our country. I know that there was some difficult times, but I'm sure you had, it was also very rewarding during your career of 32 years of service. Yeah. So our tagline here on It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk is, I talk about things you think about. And so I ran across some of your TikTok videos one day, and I was like, oh my God, listen at this master teacher on this topic about narcissism. And so if you could why does it feel so important to you to expose what our narcissistic behavior patterns are?
So it's important to me because they say that 70% of men have been diagnosed with narcissism and 30% of women. They say Black men are on the leading edge of narcissism being diagnosed. It's important for many reasons. Most reasons, one of the top reasons, and in no particular order, they say that narcissists don't know that they're narcissists. They act the way that they act, right? They lack empathy. All those things are really true. And I believe that they also lack sympathy. What I also believe now today is looking at the way these young men and women are being raised, looking at how society prevents us from teaching them or training them or disciplining them the old school way. Our hands are tied. So a lot of these young men and women have a lack of empathy. They'll tell you, I don't care. They're only concerned about themselves. They're very self-centered. Those are narcissistic traits within itself. Okay. They don't know how to love. They don't care about love, which I was the same way. Those are narcissistic traits. You know, it's all about them. The grandiose type of mindset, that's a narcissistic trait. They could be very seductive. They could be very, very manipulative. And those are narcissistic traits. Okay. And so I think that most people are unaware of it because they have failed to get diagnosed, even though they know that there's something wrong with them. I knew there was something wrong with me when I was a child. I knew there was something wrong with me when I turned 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I always knew there was something wrong with me because I could not ever tell a woman, I could say I love you, but I didn't feel anything. It's like drinking water. You know, I didn't feel anything. I didn't crave love because of my childhood. And so a lot of young people, even nowadays with me, yes, I was abused and neglected, but these kids nowadays push things to the side. They don't express themselves. They suppress everything. They don't talk about their hurt, their pain. They're easily medicated. They want to go pop a pill, whether it's a Percocet or whatever it is. They want to take their pills for ADD and ADHD. And these kids are being diagnosed just like that without even like saying, well, let me try to work on this. Let me go through therapy first. These kids are going into therapy and then they're bragging about it. And don't be surprised if 5 to 10 years from now, you have people saying, yeah, I'm a narcissist. Hell yeah, I like it. It's going to come because it's like a trending thing that right now. When I started talking about it last year, I didn't even realize it was trending. I was talking to a lady and she knew that I was a narcissist. She said, well, why don't you start talking about it? And I did. And so it's very important for me to educate people on ghosting, the silent treatment, breadcrumbing, shunning, things like that, because women are dealing with it and men, and they like, what the hell is this? I don't know what's going on. You know, he's quiet. He doesn't talk to me. He doesn't hold my hand. He doesn't cuddle. He doesn't kiss me. You know, he always wants me to do everything for him. Doesn't do anything for me. You know, and he goes to work and he's happy and he comes home, he's unhappy. So at work, I was like the man. I came home, I wasn't the man. I was a little boy because of my infidelity. So I was being treated like a kid, but I had to take that. I had to eat that. And so I knew that, but then I go to work and then I became verbally abusive to my sailors, mentally abusive to my kids. And so I took on a lot of traits of my mother and father, and I didn't realize it until I went into therapy. And she made, first thing that a narcissist will get in therapy is awareness. This is what you're doing, Leon. This is why you act the way that you're acting. This is why you say what you say. This is why you feel the way that you feel. This is why you can't feel this. This is why you can't feel that. So it's crucial that you go into therapy being open and honest so they can diagnose you and break up all of those things and unearth everything and get to the center of it all. So it's very important that people start talking about this more and creating awareness and clarity for people that are dealing with somebody like me, because they don't know what's going on. Even a narcissistic person doesn't know, but they do know, because it's a and I tell people this, it's a good feeling to have people cater to you. It's a good feeling to have a bunch of women. It's wrong, but that's why it's hard to stop. Why would I stop doing these things or accepting these things? Because it feels good. There's nothing wrong with me. That's the first thing out of my mouth. I'm successful. I'm ranked number 1 everywhere I go. I'm sailor year everywhere I go. I'm recruiter year everywhere I go. I'm getting promoted. I'm getting awarded. I'm getting rewarded. How could there possibly be anything wrong with that? Well, Leon, the way you did it, this is what you did. This is why you did it. This is what you did. This is why on and on and on. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it again. Because if I do this again, I'm getting promoted again. If I get promoted again, I'm gonna lead more people. If I lead more people, I get promoted again. I make more money. If I make more money, I can buy a bigger car, a bigger house. So it was all that initial and the internal emotions that I had and those good feelings that I had and I wanted and I lived with it. And so I was narcissistic. People go through life like that, destroying relationships, destroying marriages, destroying families. And it's like, oh, it's not me. I'm not the problem. I'm providing everything. I'm protected. I'm doing everything. Nobody's done anything for me. I'm doing it all. It's all about me. And I didn't realize that until I went to therapy.
Wow.
So a lot of Black men think that therapy is taboo.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of white men that are proudly go through therapy and talk about it. Hey, Leon, what you doing today? I'm going to go home and cook some ribs. What you doing? Well, I'm going to therapy for 2 hours and I'm going to take the wife out. I'm like, what? Nah, man, I ain't going there. There's nothing wrong with me. Well, you might want to think about it, but you know how many times men told me that?
Wow.
You might want to think about it, man, because I don't know. There's something going on with you, my man. Man, get the hell out of there. I don't want to hear that. Boom.
Yeah. When I started researching and diving more into the this personality disorder, of course, there's this scale of mental disorder. And so there's these 3 clusters, there's A, B, and C. And that's where this personality disorder fell up under. And I just wanted to read a little bit about what it shared about this cluster B. And the cluster B for narcissistic personality disorder was feeling superior, special, lack of empathy, like you said, need for admiration,
big time,
exploiting others, and sensitive to rejection.
Oh my God.
How do you feel about those?
That sensitive to rejection was something that burned those are all true, of course. And it's DSM-5 has changed a lot, but sensitive to rejection is huge because it's like, and I was just telling a young lady this the other day, I was like, you know, there were a lot of things that women said to me and I've been rejected before, but you know what narcissistic people do, at least in my mind, I had to tell myself she rejected me because I was too much for her, which in all reality, I wouldn't say this back then, but now I wasn't enough for her. But I could never tell myself, I was too much. I wasn't enough for her. I was always too much. You know, I had too much. She couldn't handle me. You know, I knew too much. She wasn't ready for me. It was all about preserving myself and dealing with the rejection. And so I would block that out forever. And somebody could come back and ask me 5 years from now or 10 years from when I was rejected, Leon, you remember this? And I'd be like, nah, it didn't go down that way. We can argue, even if it's 10, 15 years old, nah, I didn't go down that way. But now, with my therapy and clarity and awareness and implementing what I learned in therapy, I could say, yeah, you know, you were right. But I still have a personality disorder, so I can go back right to him like, nah, you wasn't right. I don't even want to hear that. It's been 10 years, but guess what? It's still the same. I see that you ain't doing good. I blah, 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 you know?
Yeah.
And so with me, I cherish the moments that I have now because life is not short. We make it short. And I want to extend my life by bettering my mental health, by bettering my relationships, by being vulnerable and transparent. This is the hard part, Miami. Being vulnerable and transparent is extremely hard for me. The gaslighting, the breadcrumbing, the silent treatment, all that was very easy for me. And it was really fun. As sick as that may sound, people need to know that those things that narcissistic people do, it's fun. I even laughed at the things that I did to women. But guess what? My karma came. And when it came hard and heavy. And it was like all at once. And sometimes a little bit at a time. So I owe society what I'm doing now. I owe this to the women that I hurt. I owe this to the young men that I verbally abused coming up. And so this is my job, this is my duty, and this is my journey, and I have to embrace it. I was afraid to embrace it. I didn't plan to talk about this. God sent a woman to me to talk about it, and I talked about it, and now I talk about it.
Yeah. And I love it because you have gone viral on social media with these truthful pain point topics, like you've talked about the emotional detachment, easy to disregard, the silent treatment, avoidance, poor excuses, and other things, like you said, ghosting phase, or broken narcissistic in denial will drain you. That one was and why empaths suffer. And when I came across that one, I was like, okay, I have to talk to him.
Right.
So talk about the healing journey from others, like your followers or fans. What are they saying or sharing with you as you do this public plea to help educate us?
You know what's really odd to me, Miami, and what's strange and crazy is that this is why narcissism was such a secret. People couldn't put their hands on it except psychiatrists and psychotherapists, psychologists.
Yeah.
When I talk about ghosting and when I talk about the biggest one I think was why a narcissistic person doesn't want to give you closure, or why was it so easy for me to just walk away? Women are like, Leon, I've been looking for that answer for 25 years. And I can hear it in their text, in their response to my video, that they're very passionate, and they might even be crying when they say, Leon, I've been waiting on this answer for 25 years. Because a man is not going to give you these certain answers because he doesn't want closure. He wants to be able to always come back. I always say Leon, because I'm not putting men out there, I'm not throwing women under the bus, I'm not calling people out. Leon wants to always be able to come back, always. So leave the door a little bit open, because I can discard you, but like we mentioned earlier, rejection, I don't like rejection. I can't handle rejection. I can't come back from rejection. That's why we go to the next person, the next supply, to fulfill that void of rejection.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be instant. I can get rejected right now at 2 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, I'm with somebody else, looking for somebody else, or asking for somebody else, or getting somebody else to stroke my ego, make me feel better about what you just did to me. And then I block it out. I use an excuse. Well, I was too much for her. She didn't know enough. She was intimidated by me. So the rejection hurts, but it only lasts for maybe a couple of minutes, and then I'm gone, you know?
Does that fall over into the silent treatment after you've been rejected and now you're giving the person the silent treatment? Is that how that happens? Or
if they're still around, but they're going to get the silent treatment because she got away. But I'm going to also hoover, okay? So there's steps to this narcissism. And sometimes...
Let's go through them.
Okay, let's go through them. So start with rejection. And they don't have to be in a particular order. You rejected me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, now I have to fulfill my own needs. I have to stroke my own ego to heal my own wounds. I don't call them wounds. Now I'm replacing it with, you didn't reject me. You couldn't handle me. So bet, it's all good. I'm out. Now I'm going to sit back. Now I become vindictive. Okay. And when I become vindictive, I become manipulative. All right. When I become manipulative, I start to hoover. When I start to hoover, I'm watching what you do. I have other friends they call flying monkeys to let me know what you're doing, where you're going, how you're doing, new job, lost your job, car accident, health declining. I'm looking at all these things and wondering what you're doing, I don't want to hear that you're doing good. I don't want to hear that you got another man to move on. I just want to hear certain things to let me know that I need to reach out, send you a text message. I want to make sure you're vulnerable. I want to make sure you're hurting. If you're crying, I want to know. Even though you rejected me, you're still a good person. You're still an empath. So you're going to accept me, regardless if you know I'm a narcissistic person or not, regardless if I was a butthole to you or not. You're an empath, so you can't push people away. I'm the narcissistic person. I can push people away all day long. Doesn't mean anything to me. You can't. You push me away to save your heart, to save your soul, to save your spirit. You push me away because God gave you the strength to do that. But you're not going to close the door totally, because you still hurt on the inside, because you love Leon. But Leon was just kind of like messed up and wasn't, my life course wasn't in sync with yours. And you feel that. So I know this. You know, narcissistic people, I'm not going to say we're intelligent, but I know about personalities. I know about relationships. I know all of those things. So we study those things in an effort to come back and get you and destroy you again. Now we win. I tell people, narcissistic people don't like to lose. Narcissistic people have to discard you first, hurt you first, because that gives me a permanent, lifelong trophy of you. Yeah. Whether it's visual or emotional. I know I hurt you. I know I derailed you. I know right now you can't even date any other men because of me. And that was my goal. And so I know going back to you and checking on you, the hoovering, I'm going to see how you're doing. And then guess what? You're going to say, hey, Leon, I appreciate the phone call. And then the moment you start talking to me over a few seconds to 1 minute, to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes. And if you FaceTime me, it's the worst thing you can do, because I can see your emotions. Yeah. And if you keep talking to me and I try to get off the phone, well, hold on, Leon, it's been a while. You're screwing up right there. Now I'm back. Now I start to put the press on. Mm-hmm. And so that's the hoovering, to figure out what you are, what you're doing, where you're going. Are you doing good? Are you doing bad? Are you doing okay? You know? And then you have like the gaslighting. So we can go back and talk about the old things that we used to do that you accused me of that I didn't do. And now I'm trying to get you to feel sorry for you. Now you start to let your guard down, right? So I'm hoovering and gaslighting. And then I'm being very manipulative, very vindictive. And this all goes into each other. They all run concurrent. and then I'll start to starve you again, give you the silent treatment, because I know you're hurting, I know you're vulnerable. I called you today and I wait 2-3 days, I call you again, your answer. Now you're slowly coming back into my little web. And now I'm just going to get worse, because I always remember that you rejected me and I didn't like that.
Whoa, that is a lot. That is a lot. So Grief Nation listeners, I hope that you are paying attention to this type of personality disorder that really affects the other person who needs some type of recovery method from being in spaces and places and loving people that have this disorder. So what would you recommend for a woman or male who either is on the receiving end or being the victim of this? What would you say are some ways that they can recover over time from this?
Ways that you can recover over time from, I call it a Leon. The ways you can recover from a Leon is to realize that you were too much for Leon. You were too good. Leon wasn't ready for you, although I'll never say that. I say it now, but I wouldn't say it back then. You have to realize that you did the best that you can do for somebody that's damaged, hurt, and broken. You did the best that you can do for somebody that doesn't have therapy. You did the best that you can do for somebody that's dealing with issues and trauma from possibly 100 years of trauma passed down from grandfather, grandmother, father, mother, hundreds of years. There's nothing you can do about that. If that person hasn't gotten help, doesn't think that there's anything wrong with them, doesn't want to get help, feel that they're fine, you can't do anything. You can't fix that person. They have to fix themselves. And that's when a lot of empaths find themselves being hurt and discarded, because they try so hard. They want to hold on so long. They want to repair me. They want to rehabilitate me. You can't do it if I don't think there's anything wrong with me and I haven't gone through therapy. If I've gone through therapy, I have to implement it and mean it and do what I learned in therapy. I have to have that awareness and that clarity. If I don't have those things, you can't do anything about that. You wind up doing more damage to yourself trying to help me, and you start hurting yourself more than you can help me, because you just can't give up. You can't give in, and it feels like you failing in a project that your teacher gave you. I am your project, but if I'm not a project that wants to be handed in for a grade, it's not going to work. I'm going to be happy all the time because you're going to pay into me. I'll give you just a little bit to keep you around. I'll breadcrumb you to keep you around. I'll breadcrumb to make you happy. I'll breadcrumb to make you think we're going to be together. And you just take it and you take it and you take it. Enough is enough. So people like all the empaths or just good wholesome women and men out there that are dealing with the Leon realize that Leon has issues that are unresolved, and Leon doesn't think that he has unresolved issues. I'd never admit to that. And when women admitted to me, said, Leon, there's something wrong with you, you're dysfunctional, I get angry, I become vindictive, I become very manipulative, and it starts over again. As long as you stay with me, I am not going to change. But you'll change for the worse. Your health will start declining, your skin will change, your eyes will change, your menstrual cycle will change. You don't want to get up and go to work. You're not feeling loved. You're not feeling cared for because I'm not doing those things. You're not as loving and caring to your kids, to your family, all because of a Leon.
And so how did you begin to unpack this? I know you said you went to therapy, but what were some of the conversations that you needed to have in therapy to help you get to where you are now? Because remember, you all, this is who Leon used to be, but he's sharing this gift, really, which is a gift of exposing these types of behaviors so that you can learn from them. So what were some of those things that you had to unpack and to be where you are now?
So when I walked in, my first therapist, psychiatrist was in 1987 when I was 21. We went there to decompress about the event that happened on the USS Star. I went in there and we didn't even talk about the event. We talked about my childhood and then he went on into the personality disorder. I'm like, I'm 21 years old. You telling me I'm crazy? That's what I thought. And prior to that, before I came into Navy, my friends, my family, my mother's friends all said my mother was crazy. And so for me to sit in front of a white man and tell me you have personality disorder, now I'm thinking, dang, my mother gave me a crazy brain, right? And as much as I love the Navy, I decided to get out after 4 years. I went back in after 72 days, but I decided to go back in with the crazy brain, and they didn't find out anything until later on. I went another 28 years before I saw my first psychotherapist. I didn't even know what a psychotherapist is. And as I read through my medical record just recently, I went in her office, and I don't even remember why I went. I was sent there. I don't know who sent me, okay? But I was sent to see a psychotherapist specifically at the VA hospital. I had no clue who what a psychotherapist was. And so I sat in her office for 18 minutes and I walked out. And every time you go in there and speak to one of them, they type as you come in, how you looking, how you sound, what you smell like. I came in there smelling like cigarettes and alcohol. I don't even remember that. I went back, that was August of 2014. I was sent back again in December 2014 to see a psychiatrist. And I came in there smelling like coffee, cigarettes, and something else. Wasn't anything, drugs, probably alcohol. And so I sat in her office for 50 minutes and she wrote down, he came in here angry, agitated. He doesn't take therapy seriously. And I'm reading all this stuff. I don't remember these things, Miami. I don't, but it's in my record. And so I left her office after 50 minutes and I went back in January 2015. I said, you know what, let me sit down. But the key thing here with why I was able to sit through therapy, stay in there, open myself up, be vulnerable and transparent. That was the first time I was ever vulnerable and transparent, was in 2015. It's because the way she received me. It was a little bitty white lady. She was like 4'11". She probably weighed 100 pounds. And I'll never forget her. She had on all black, which scared the hell out of me when I went in there. Mm-hmm. And she was small. It scared me because she was tough. Like, I'm like 5'9", 225, right? Solid dude. I go in and this lady's like, okay, you need to have a seat and get that straw out of your mouth. Now I was like, whoa. Because I always walked into therapy with a Starbucks straw or a toothpick or a regular straw in my mouth. And she taught me about that. I was diagnosed with oral fixation while I was in there with her. I had oral fixation because I was molested by my cousins and they kissed my mouth. They sucked in my mouth when I was missing a tooth. I was 5 years old and I never forgot that, but I never talked about it. And so she started educating me. So I had somebody finally listen to Leon, this big, bad, angry, dysfunctional, dangerous Master Chief. Somebody finally allowed me to sit down and open up. And she told me, said, you don't have to be big and bad coming in here, young man. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Now, because when I walked in, I'm like, rah, rah, rah. And she's like, we're not having that today. Nobody ever said that to me. Mm-hmm. Here I am, a senior leader Navy. Who's gonna say that to me? No one. I made Master Chief in 2006. I retired in 2015. So for 9 years, I'm walking around this big bad dude. Nobody's saying anything to me. And I was highly dysfunctional. I was a functioning dysfunctional from all my career. But at that point, as senior leader, nobody said anything. Nobody said, hey, man, Leon, you need to think about this, man, because the way you're talking to these people, the way you're doing this, you out here, blah, 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 blah. And so it all started becoming, we started unpacking it when she received me. And it was her delivery. I wasn't even that open with my wife. I was married for 12 years. She never knew. Imagine that, living with a narcissist and you don't even know for 12 years, but she knew something was wrong with the way I was acting. Mm-hmm. It was only obvious, Miami. And a little bitty white lady helped me out. Yeah. Those other psychotherapists made me upset as soon as I walked in there. They couldn't receive me. So she was good at that. And so her delivery, and it just boom, 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 boom. Started talking about my mom and my mother. My sister thinks that my mother was a narcissist. My sister is a social worker. My mother was never diagnosed. But I guarantee you, if she had been set with a psychiatrist or psychotherapist, she'd have been diagnosed as a narcissist. I guarantee you that. Thinking back on it now, my mother was very beautiful, very loving, very smart, very strong woman, but she was a narcissist.
Well, yeah, I noticed in some of your TikToks, you did mention some of the things that happened with your mother and you learning how to, accept her for who she was. You want to talk about that, some about your mother, your relationship with your mother?
Yeah, so it all happened in therapy. My mother started, so my sister told me recently, and I know she learned this in her studies to be a social worker, that a doting mother. She said, Mommy doted on you. She just told me this a couple of months ago. My mother died in 2012. And I said, what? So I looked it up. Just like people looking up narcissism and they're like, wow, what the hell? What? Ooh, wow. I looked up a doting mother and I was like, wow, what? I got away with everything. My mother served me, my sister, my brother, but up until the 6th grade, when my parents got divorced and lost our house, after that, it was nothing. My mother wasn't serving me anymore. All I knew was what she did for me from kindergarten, from birth to 11 years old. After that, I had mixed emotions because I was being molested by my cousins. I was molested by my babysitter. I lost my virginity at 8. My brother started showing me porn at 7. My uncle, my mother's brother, was touching me between ages 10 and 12, and he was also bullying me. So I had a lot of anger going on. I'm like, who could I trust? I don't trust anybody. You know, my parents getting divorced. My father's an alcoholic. My father beats my mother. My brother beat me up. Me and my sister fighting. Where am I going in life? Nowhere, but to hell. So that's when I had my suicide ideations. You know, I wanted to hang myself and I wanted to shoot myself. I had the equipment to do so as well. And so my mother, I started learning more about my mother after she passed away because of my therapist. I was angry with my mother. She started smoking crack in 1985. She didn't stop until 2011 when she got sick and a drug dealer dropped her off at the hospital and left. That crushed me. And my therapist said, Leon, don't be mad at your mother. Be mad at the drug. It's the drug. You weren't dealing with your mother. You were dealing with a lady that was on crack. You were dealing with a lady that had issues with her mental state, mindset, and it was the substance. It's not your mother. And that's when it hit me hard. I started crying because I should have been mad at the drug and the drug dealer. I used to wish death on drug dealers, specifically one that was selling my mother the crack cocaine, you know? And so I learned more. I got my mother's ashes to this day. My mother died in 2012. My sister sent me her ashes and she said, spread them out. Now, for some reason, I couldn't do it. I'm glad I never did that. I have my mother here with me today and she will be with me every day. That's my strength, okay? That's my guidance. She's my advisor. She's my confidant. And so through therapy, the little white lady made me think differently about my mother. And I appreciate her because of that. But prior to that, I was angry and mad at my mother.
Well,
not anymore.
God for her. We praise God for you going to therapy and being consistent in it. And we just thank God for the forgiveness that you were able to have for your mother. Now, since we're also talking about your mother and it's, you know, Father's Day is coming up soon. You want to share anything about your relationship with your father?
Yeah. So my father, with me blaming my mother for everything, I would delve into the love and respect I have for my dad. And so I didn't have respect for my mom, but that was a mistake, a huge mistake. My parents got divorced when I was 11 or 12, and I knew why. My mother claimed mental abuse. I read it for many years, and I looked at my dad like, man, mentally abusive. I didn't see it. And I saw it. I didn't see it, and I saw it. But my dad, he rescued my sister and I, and that was another reason why I was upset with my mother, because at age 12, I came home. My mother had moved, we lost a house, and so my mother went to live in a hotel with my brother for a year and sent me to live with a lady I didn't know. So that was a discard phase for me, okay? So I figured, my mother discarded me, doesn't love me. I'm not gonna let another woman discard me, and I'm not gonna love another one. I'm gonna be discarded. Back then, when I was 12, I called it pushing women out of my life. I was afraid to love. I wasn't going to love. And I stuck with that. That became part of my narcissistic personality disorder. And so my dad, once my mother moved us, got us back together when I was 12, I went to sleeping on the floor again because I peed in the bed from kindergarten to 7th grade. So my mother and father put me from the bed to the floor to the bed to the floor. And I laid on that carpet for probably 2 years. Moved back with my mother, and here I am again back on the floor in a 1-bedroom apartment with 4 people. My mother we came home one day from school. She said, hey, you guys got court tomorrow. I'm like, court? Imagine that. 13 years old being told you got to go to court. For what? Custody. You need to know if you guys will stay with me or your dad. And I'm like, okay. My father comes pick us up. We go to court. Boom. That was the last time I stepped foot in my mother's house. She didn't show up for court, and she knew she wasn't coming. So again, we lost our house. I'm being sent to live with a lady I don't know. That's the first discard. The second discard is not showing up for court.
Yeah. And so
okay.
Your father, so that at this time, your father was more of the hero out of, you know, all that you were experiencing, I'm sure, right?
So from age 13 to 47, my dad was my hero. I say 47 because that's when therapy started. And I found out that my mom was also my hero. And so, yeah, my dad saved my sister and I was able to go to the school that I wanted to go to. My sister got taken out of that school and sent to a school, Cleveland Public School, which wasn't good for her. And so she started smoking cigarettes and weed. I wasn't doing that. I was playing sports. I was in a good high school. So we became even more dysfunctional. But my dad kept us straight because he had discipline, but he worked a third shift. So when he worked a third shift, now here I am with my sexual addictions. I'm 15 years old now, working for a grown lady that had after I was joined up the street. Now I'm seeing all these older men, old women snort cocaine. I'm seeing prostitution. At 15, I bought my first prostitute because I worked for a lady that paid me that had prostitutes. So my dad was my hero. He was structured. He had discipline, but he's working a third shift. So I was all over the place. At 15, it was on and popping. And so, yeah, he became my hero. Got me my first bed after the 6th grade, after sleeping on the floor for 2 years with my mom. He became my hero. And that's all I saw. My father knew about my military career, kept in touch. My mom didn't know about my military. She knew that I was in the military, but I never heard from my mom. I got one letter from my mother in 32 years. And I was okay with it because she wasn't my hero until I went through therapy and realized that, in therapy, you go back and you unearth everything. From 1979 to 1982, my mother lost 6 people. That's one person every 6 months. She had no choice but to start getting high to mask her pain. I didn't put that together until I talked to the little bitty white lady.
Wow. Now, after you start uncovering all of these things, you forgave your mom, forgave your father for whatever reasons. And now you're in this space to be able to share with everybody about, the traumas that you've had. What are you doing now to make sure that you don't fall back into the old Leon and, after discovering and uncovering all of this childhood trauma?
So as a narcissist, you can care less what people think about you. You want people to look at you in a certain light as long as you're successful, that grandiose type of thing, right? But now I have to hold myself accountable with being honest, being truthful, being transparent, being open, being real. And I care about what people say and how people feel, how I make people feel. That's important to me now because years ago, before therapy, I was running through people, running through women, running over women. I didn't care what they thought, how they felt. I didn't care that if I broke her heart, I cheated on her. I also hurt her mother and father and brother and sister too. There's second, third, and fourth order of effects that happens when you hurt somebody. I never thought about that. I could care less. You shouldn't have said this, you shouldn't have did that, whatever. Now I had to expose myself, and there are a lot of people either watching my video, wondering, thinking, looking at me. And so I have to have something in place that holds me accountable, and that's you all. I can hold myself accountable, but I like doing it in the masses. It's unfair to say, all right, I'm diagnosed, I'm implementing what I learned, I have clarity, I have awareness. Let me get married and go away in the sunset, die and go to heaven with my wife, whatever. That's not enough. Just because you're diagnosed and you're not doing those things anymore and you're getting a little better, no. God told me it's time for me to start helping people, Leon. But I don't know what to do. And the lady said, post a video. And guess what? I said, okay, cool. Post a video, sit back. Uh-oh. Now people want to know. I got to respond. Leon, why did you do this? Leon, you're creepy. You make my skin crawl. I hate you. You remind me of my husband. Leon, you scare me. Boom, 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 boom. This is every day of the week, as long as I post a video. And it beat me down. But guess what? That's part of my karma, brother. Because how many women did you beat down? I don't like you. You can leave. Who cares? I like your sister. You ain't nothing. You can't have children. Your body's like blah, 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 blah. Everything's coming back to Leon now. I wasn't ready for that, Miami. Whoa. It's like, okay, do a video. Good job, Leon. Wait, man, that was good to help people. All right, Leon, what about this? You sucked as a husband. You remind me of my ex-husband. You did the same thing. Leon, you wasn't a good father. Blah, 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 blah. I wasn't ready to hear that. And narcissistic people don't like to hear put downs or rejection. So I had to stand up, not stronger or prouder. I had to face everything that I put out there 30 years ago. It's coming back now. So in November last year, I stopped. I said, I can't take this. I did. I turned into a little punk. This hurts. But then God said, how many people did you hurt? You got 3 text messages, women saying, you make their skin crawl, you suck, you need to stop doing this. But you also had a wife that you cheated on. You also had children that you yelled at. You also had hundreds of sailors that you yelled at too, Leon. But those 3 emails broke you down. Get back up and do it again. And so the month of November last year, I took a break, and people like, where you been, man? And I started in December all over again. I've been going strong ever since. I got to face what I put out there. It ain't over for me. I thought because I went through therapy, I'm healed, I'm good. I'm doing the right thing. Oh no, there's homework, buddy. Yeah. There's homework. And in therapy, I had plenty of homework. And this is more homework for me. And this is continued therapy. My medical record says therapy - indefinite. And I saw that, I was like, So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, I appreciate you being so vulnerable, so honest about your past, your, coming into your present, who you are, still having that attachment of all of these things that you have experienced, but yet still able to share the story just authentic as you can, and being just as honest. And we need honesty. That's a part of, the Black traditional language that we don't talk. We don't share. We're not supposed to anyway. But we need to get out of that, and slowly, surely, it's we're talking more about therapy. We're sharing more about our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And it's good to see a man come forward and just share. Yes, I was this way, but there is ways for healing from all of this. As I kept listening to everything that you experienced, why wouldn't you have been the person you were? I mean, with everything you experienced, that's I'm not trying to be funny. Please excuse me if I offend anybody, but why wouldn't you have turned out that way? With everything you experienced. And I mean, there was a lot of trauma that you experienced, and I can only imagine from the childhood trauma and then the trauma that you saw in the military.
That's why I tell people, narcissistic people are created by being a product of your environment, bullied, being raped, being molested, being discarded. I did all of that, right? And there's
so you were just a reflection of that.
Yeah, exactly. And then so I create this person that I'm not going to go through this anymore. This is who I'm going to be. And it started feeling good. Yeah. I went feeling bad, feeling horrible, being rejected, to rejecting, making other people feel bad, feel horrible. And that felt good to me. As sick as that may sound, that's what it was. You're right. So that's.
But I can understand it, because it's almost like you're trying to build up this wall so you won't be rejected again, so you won't be hurt again, so that no one else can molest you, no one else can cause all this pain to you. So you put this wall up, pretending that you're okay, but underneath the surface, like there's the iceberg syndrome. You look good on top of the water, but underneath the water is where all of this trauma and everything is stored and encapsulated until you're ready to start the forgiving process and move forward. So I'm going to say a couple of titles of your book, and you just explain these things, because this is further therapy for you and for others that you have put out there, because you're a multi-author. And so I'm going to break down these titles. Broken.
I wrote that book. I started writing it. Miami, I wrote that book in 59 days. I started writing June 6th, and I think I got done August 11th, but I had written 5 books in that period of time because I was unloading after therapy. And so I had 1,000 pages. So I broke it down to what you see now is one book, Broken. It starts from age 5 to 17. It talks about my addictions to porn. It also talks about my grandmother and mother's very toxic relationship. The men in my family were put on a pedestal. And so I expected that from women. I expect women to fight each other and fight over me. How sick is that? That's what I saw. And so Broken goes from age 5 to 11, talk about losing our house, the eviction, the addiction to porn, the being molested, being bullied, and making a decision to join the military. Love Ship talks about the love languages. It breaks down that. It talks about climbing in love instead of falling in love. It talks about the components of a relationship, which nobody talks about. It talks about relationship vows instead of marriage vows, which nobody talks about.
Yeah.
Love Ship has a lot of stuff, everything in there. I also wrote a book called Keeping Kids Safe from Porn. It's a 43-page ebook. And it's a 43-page ebook that breaks down the training, how to train parents to know when their kid is addicted to porn. My parents never knew. They died without knowing that I had a deep porn addiction. My next book comes out. I'm trying to get out in August timeframe. It's called The 7 Loveless Traits. So everybody reads about this book called The 5 Love Languages, but nobody talks about the loveless languages. I do.
And what?
Okay.
Can you go through those for us?
Yeah. So just say, let's pick 3, right?
Okay.
1 love language is acts of service. Okay. Narcissistic Libra Leon is going to provide acts of disservice. A loveless language. Right? Another love language is called communication. Narcissistic Libra Leon is going to have bad communication, no communication. Sexually, I was nonverbal in the bedroom because when I was molested and my uncle was touching me, they used to always tell me to be quiet. That carried through into my adulthood. And women used to ask, Leon, are you okay? Did you enjoy it? I couldn't say nothing. I talked about that in therapy. It came out. Another love language is physical touch. I'm only going to, as a loveless language, I'm only going to touch what I like. I don't care that you need your shoulders rubbed. I don't care that you haven't had your forehead kissed in years. I don't care if you want to cuddle. I don't like to cuddle. I'm not a cuddler. I don't hold hands. I don't hug. I do it now, but those things make me feel like I was trapped. So those are loveless traits. I didn't want to call them loveless languages because I didn't want to be too close to his book, The 5 Love Languages.
Gotcha.
So I called it the loveless traits, and there were 7 of them. Words of affirmation, okay? The opposite. My book is the opposite of love languages. Words of affirmation, now I have words of condemnation, all right? I don't like your stretch marks. You know, you got cottage shoes on your thighs. Your lips are too little, whatever. Words of condemnation. Love languages, words of affirmation. I had no affirmations for any woman. Yeah. So that book is coming out probably August. And matter of fact, Miami, since we did it, since we talked about it on your YouTube page, on your IG, whatever one you choose, everyone that interviewed me, I'm gonna do a 1-hour book giveaway on each one of these platforms. Right now, it's 20 of them. So I'm gonna be giving away books every day of the week for the next 2 weeks in August, once my book is published, on people to interview me. So they'll call in, hey, Miami, my name is so-and-so. So the caveat, not the caveat, but also what I want people to do when we're on your show and other people interview me is when they call in and request to join, ask a question, 3-minute talk, I get your information or you get it. I sign a book and mail it to them. All the books are gonna go out the next day. So I'll be giving away probably 20, 30 books a day for 2 weeks, a couple of 100 books.
Oh, wow. That's an amazing gift. So thank you so much. I think we did miss one, or I'm not sure, 1 point.
So 1 point, so Broken is volume 1 of my memoir. 1 point out later this year is volume 2.
Okay.
1 point goes from age 18 to like 22, 23, my first 4 years in the Navy. Then you start seeing the narcissistic come out, the traits come out. And I met, to this day, I truly believe that he's probably malignant or classic narcissist, but I knew about it back in 87, 88, but I met him in 88. And it was a man that was very, very spooky and sick. And so I talk about him at the end of the book because even thinking about him now, it makes me sick. He didn't damage me or the sailors, but he damaged the leaders that took care of us. He sent 7 people to the psych ward. I saw it with my own eyes. So 1 point comes out later this year is volume 2 of Broken.
Leon, thank you so much for opening my eyes to even more of this personality disorder and how myself or any other female or male can fall into the trap of someone with this type of disorder, but also in understanding that the victim in this has to learn to just move on. Despite the love, despite all that, you have put into this relationship, not until the person that has this disorder decides. And that's always been the thing for me as on my journey. And when I also coach others, you have to decide to do something different. And when you decided to do something different, which was go to therapy, start uncovering all of this trauma, realizing that this trauma did happen to you, to even connect it with this disorder, the disorder that you have, to be able to say, hey, look, I need to do something different in my life. I need to start hurting these women, accept what I've done, and move forward. So I'm grateful that you're in this space now, that you can say, yeah, this is who I was. Because I love, I love on TikTok or wherever your information is posted, that you always say, okay, I'm going into character. I love that part, because I'm like, look at him just being this master teacher. So I just love that part, because you have to, the awareness and the understanding and the gift that you're bringing to people to realize, hey, this is who I was and who I am somewhere deep down inside. But I know I challenge myself every day to do something different and to be a better person.
Right.
And so if more people would do that and admit that they have these disorders, or admit that there's something wrong, or even admit that, I had childhood trauma, because I know that there's men right now who, like you said, they're strong in their stature, they're, how many ever feet tall or short, and they come across as this, strong person, but underneath they're not really sharing what's underneath the surface. And that's what's causing these relationship issues, and also family, a history of family trauma.
A history.
Yeah.
Before we go, my father's father, my grandfather, was a shower of love, not a speaker. My father and his brothers had cars, food, bills were paid, whatever. He was a protector. My dad was a shower of love. We had clothes, he rescued us, right? We had food, utilities were on, we had cars, whatever. I too became a shower of love, okay? My kids had food, clothes, my wife was well taken care of. My grandfather, my dad, and me. My grandfather never told my dad he loved him. My father never told me he loved me. They are showers. And guess what? 100 years of that. So my grandfather say he was 80 when he died. My father was 68. Okay, that's 148 years of not saying I love you. And then here come me, I'm 56 now. At the time, let's say 30. So you're talking about 200 years of not saying I love you, but I'm showing you. So, boy, you got school clothes. I got you signed up for football. You got a go-kart. You got a bicycle. You got cable TV. Mm-hmm. Kids nowadays expect dads to do that. Mm-hmm. They also expect dads to say, I love you. Yeah. I wasn't saying that. So 100 years, almost 200 years of not saying that was passed down from my grandfather. I didn't know how to do it until I got married at 30 years old, and my wife said, Leon, you haven't said you love me in a long time. I was like, God, dog. Didn't even realize I wasn't telling my wife I loved her. Didn't even think about it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, yeah, that generational stuff, deep.
Oh yes, it was, and that was very touching. I really love. I'm grateful that came up, because that's very. Oh gosh, what do I want to say? It's inspiring to share that with others, so other men do go back to recall, how often am I telling my loved one that I do love you? Because a lot of times after someone passes or dies, and after this transition, and you're experiencing all of these phases of your loss, you definitely in that middle phase where you wish you coulda, woulda, shoulda, having that emotion of why didn't I speak up more or tell my loved one that I love them so much more. But I'm glad that you brought that to the Grief Nation listeners, that say that more, and realize when you're not saying it, your wife doesn't need to tell you, hey, Leon, you're not telling me you love me. But in your mind, because you are doing and you're showing, that's your love language. But it's the actual, what you say, the love less, right? Language.
Yeah.
But, and I think men do kind of confuse that, or women as well, that because I'm doing, that's telling you that I'm loving that, but no. communication is the key to all relationships and partnerships. So saying that is definitely imperative to have, you know, these keys to even work in your life. So what's next for your brand, Inspire?
What's next is, great question. So I developed a book writing course that I'm going to launch, because I can teach people how to write a book. Everybody should have a book in their family, written by Miami, written by Greg, written by Leroy, written by Leon. A book's going to be around for 300, 400, 500 years. And your great grandchildren say, Mommy, I didn't know Auntie, I didn't know Grandma Miami had a podcast. I didn't know she did this. I didn't know she did that. I didn't know she helped people with mental health. Wow, that was back in 2022. This is 3045. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just that simple.
Yeah.
So I'm writing a book course. So to teach people how to write a book, it's going to be cheap, maybe $100. It's going to be a 5-day course, 1 hour a day.
Yeah.
And so people can click on and listen to it. I'll probably call it from book to podcast, or from book to TV show, or from book to radio show. I've done podcasts, I've been on radio show, I've been on TV about my books. So I'm going to teach people how to do that, because it's not hard. I just never wanted to write a book, and then I found out that I can write a book. You can do anything you want to do if you just sit down and say, you know, I'm going to do it, and you do it.
Yeah.
That, and so I got a guy working on turning my book into my life into a script. So we're trying to get it to maybe possibly a movie like Antoine Fisher movie one day, you know?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
working on that. So there's a lot in the works for me right now.
Yeah, I was so excited that I was able to even book you, because like I said, you are really going viral. And I was like, oh, thank you. He can open up his schedule for me. So I truly appreciate you being on It's the Miami Night Show, Grief Talk, and sharing all of your knowledge and your you know, uncovering those deep things that we don't like to talk about. And this is
Right.
so important. This is why my show was created, to share stories of like-minded people, just regular people that wants to heal. You know, that's my branding, mastering spiritual healing. And that's something that happens over a lifetime. You never get to this particular destination. There's no destination, because you're constantly evolving into someone new if you're doing the work, the inner work. And I'm just grateful that there's a man that can come forward and say, I've done the inner work, I've done the child healing, you know, the inner child healing work, and I'm constantly doing it. So I'm just grateful for who you are, who you've become, and sharing the story of who you were. I also want to know, how can my listeners reach out to you? If you can give us your social medias.
Yeah, my social media, first of all, they can Google me, Leon Robert Walker Jr. I'm on Instagram as Leon R. Walker Jr. I'm on TikTok as Leon R. Walker Jr. My website is leonrobertwalkerjr.com. I'm on Facebook as Leon Robert Walker Jr. and LinkedIn as well. TikTok, everywhere. So Google me. But if, you know, Leon R. Walker Jr. is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Leon Robert Walker Jr. is my website that's been up for a few months now. And I'm everywhere.
Okay. So before I let you go, share something that you would like to see change or bring further awareness to within the mental wellness community.
What I like to see change is that people stop thinking that going through therapy is not taboo. Getting mental help doesn't mean that you're crazy. It just means that if you admit to it, you want it, that means you're strong and not weak. Do your research on your parents. My sister seems to think that my mother was a narcissist, okay? I study my parents now more than I did in their death than they were alive. And I learned a lot more about my parents and myself. Think about what you pass down to your children. I pass some things down to my children, and it's starting to come out now. But because I'm educated on mental health, I understand how to deal with them, how to understand them, how to listen, and not blow up and just send them to a psychiatrist and let them pump them full of pills and medicine. No. Talk therapy is what helped this old narcissist out. Talk therapy. No pills. There's no medicine for this. It's talk therapy. And it was a little bitty white lady. It could be a Chinese man, a black woman, 6'2", whatever. Talk therapy. Get your talk therapy. Talk to your friends. Talk to somebody. Don't hold this stuff in. You don't have to be so strong. You got to be superior and strong every single day. You're killing yourself. Yeah. You know, you don't have to, just don't be afraid to cry. You know, don't suck it up. Don't man up. There's no such thing as what is man up. You know, what is sucking it up? You don't see animals man up or sucking it up. They live, they hurt, they hunt, they provide, they protect. Understand the love languages, understand the components of a relationship, and just understand yourself before you try to understand somebody else. Stop finger pointing, stop putting people down, stop hurting people. And people say karma's not real. Karma is real. Maybe it's another name for it, but it comes back at you when you hurt people. Be nice, be genuine, be respectful, be loving, be caring. If you can, do your best and keep your spirit and soul open, because when it's open and you're a good person, you get those blessings. When you're mean, dysfunctional, mad, rude, disrespectful, your spirit is closed. You're not gonna get any blessings.
Thank you so much once again, Leon. I truly appreciate all of your time, all of your knowledge. Master teacher is what I call you, on this topic and so many others. So we thank you once again for being on It's the Miami Night Show.
Thank you for having me, Miami. I appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome.
Well, there you have it, Grief Nation listeners, and thank you for tuning in to another transformative segment on It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk. Today, we give thanks filled with love and gratitude to our special guests for expressing your very unique grief journey and sharing ways of understanding the healing process. This is your girl, Miami Night, with much love and light until we connect again spiritually. Bye-bye.
Slow mo.
He's got me walking that grief walk.
Going slow mo.
He's got me talking that grief talk.
Going slow mo.
He's got me clocking the way.
It's the Miami Night Show.
Hey, yeah.
Slow mo.
He's got me walking that grief walk.
Going slow mo.
He's got me talking that grief talk.
Going slow mo.
He's got me clocking the way.
What up, tribe? It's Miami Night Show, Master Grief Coach. Welcome to the Miami Night Show. You got me walking that grief walk. It's time for Grief Talk, y'all.
I talk about things you think about.
It's Miami Night Show, Master Grief Coach.